Well, a lot of changes since my last video, but I'm still Shane and I still like to do car stuff. If you've watched any of my videos before, you know that I was working on a 928 and a Mazda Miata, second gen MB. And well, life got busy and the 928 became very apparent I was not going to be able to get any good progress on that this year. I've kind of semi-retired, but I do some odd projects for the company I used to work for, and I've taken on a few extra projects this fall that I wasn't planning on, and it's going to be really busy. So that all to say, I sold the 928 and I traded the Miata for a truck because I needed a truck. And anyway, I thought, oh, this will give me some extra time, right? That was a good plan. Well, the plan didn't work worth a crap. Last week, something just kind of popped up or dropped into my lap, and that was this. A 1965 Triumph Spitfire. So this car was listed as a 1967 Spitfire. I knew it was an early Spitfire just because of the round tail, meaning the tail lights. After looking at the number for the, what they call it, the commissioning number, it actually, at least what was sent to me, made it out to be a 64 based on the serial numbers given on that commissioning number. And so I was kind of excited. It was a Mark 1, and I was like, oh, that'd be cool. Then I found out that they had transposed the numbers after I got the car, and instead of 36344, it was 63644, which made it a year later. So still not a 67, still a Mark 2, not a Mark 1, but a Mark 2 65 model. And anyway, it's a cool little car. It needs some work, and you know, I guess the beauty about this one is I can just take my time with it. Doesn't take up a whole lot of space, and there's no pressure to get anything done as quickly as possible as I was trying to do with the 928. So excuse the vacuum and air compressor and stuff. I'm doing a little bit of cleanup. When I got the car, it arrived, we got off the trailer, and then immediately started killing wasp nests. I think we had 3 or 4 of them that we had to kill. I might have one, the remnants of one, still over here. Oh yeah, there it is. So this is what we battled when we tried to open the hood and the trunk. Yeah, it's pretty sizable. It looks small in the picture probably, but it's a pretty good one. So that's what we did first, and we got those killed off. And anyway, rolled it over here and parked it. The other guy went on his merry way. I gave him the money, and he gave me the title, which was a original 1970s, actually from 1975, Tennessee yellow title. I had to actually go down to my county clerk the night before because I had a picture of it, and asked them if I was actually going to be able to turn it in and get a new title for it. And they actually surprised me and said, yeah, no problem. I was like, cool. So anyway, it will be a titled Tennessee car. It was already a titled Tennessee car. When it was titled in 75, it was in Brentwood, Tennessee, near Nashville. And anyway, we got the wasp all killed, kind of surveyed everything, kind of saw what was there, what wasn't there, and just kind of let it sit. So once we got the next day, I went out and surveyed the situation, determined that the engine was locked up, and I was kind of like, well, that's a bummer. But for what I gave for it, I wasn't too torn up about it. I could do anything I wanted with the car, basically. But it's a cool little car and deserves saving if I can save it. And that's what we're gonna do. But I guess the point of that was with the engine, I wouldn't have cared if I had to replace the engine, or maybe even did something kind of upgrade, or, well, some people call it upgrade, some people call it downgrade, but maybe put a something kind of crazy in there. Lots of options, and I was trying to decide what to do. So with the engine being locked up, I went ahead and pulled the well, let me back up a minute. As you can see there's green down on the valence. So originally, it looked like the car was blue. It looked like it had been repainted at some point in its life, or not. I don't know, it's pretty faded. But when it got here, I started seeing these hints of green, and I thought, oh, well, maybe it was a green car originally. There's some in there too, some in the door jambs, and but what I found out is the color code on the car is actually 26, which is Wedgwood blue. So the car was originally Wedgwood blue. Somebody had probably restored it at one point and repainted it, painted it green, and then somebody else came back later, obviously a number of years ago, judging on the paint, and painted it blue again. So that will be one thing to decide, but I'm not worried about that so much right now. Other things to worry about first. This tire keeps going flat, but these are just rollers. They're the original rims, I suppose. They look like it, but I'll probably put something different on there. So I went ahead, once I figured out the engine was locked up, went ahead, took the steps, pulled the plugs, put a pretty good dose of Marvel Mystery Oil in there, let it soak overnight one night. Came out the next day, tried to get it to bump free. Did not have a wrench or socket to fit that pulley bolt down there, because I thought it was supposed to be, based on what I read, an inch and 13/16, and it's actually an inch and 7/16. I did not have an inch and 7/16 wrench or socket, so I tried to roll it in gear, could not get it to budge at all. I even tried rolling it out of gear and then popping it in gear, and still couldn't get it to budge. I thought, well, that engine's toast. But I went ahead and soaked the cylinders again with PB Blaster the next time. Plus, somebody had recommended taking the valve cover off and putting a pretty good coat of Marvel Mystery Oil in there. So I did that. And then the next day, I borrowed my friend's 1 3/4 ratchet and socket set. Lo and behold, that's all it took. Well, kind of. I had to use the 38mm socket because his was a metric set. 36 was too small. So somebody told me that it is an inch and 7/16 on that nut on the crankshaft pulley. 38 was tight enough that I figured I could at least get it to, if it was going to do anything, it would do it. But I couldn't get it all to fit in there with the radiator in place. So I took the 4 mounting bolts on the radiator off, raised the radiator up a little bit, and got just enough where I could get clearance to get the socket and ratchet in there. And it like popped free immediately. It didn't take much at all. And I was shocked and amazed and thankful. Oh well, didn't want to count the chickens before they hatched at that point, but it was at least a good sign, or a good start. And so then I thought, well, I had plugs out still. Went ahead and did a crank. It cranked with the starter, no problem. And I thought, okay, let's try it out. So I put the plugs back in and tried to start it with starting fluid, and first couple cranks it really didn't do anything. So I took the air filters off and made sure I got the starting fluid a little bit deeper up in there. One of the pistons was stuck on the forward carb, and I had a fuel leak pretty bad on the rear carb. And this one, the piston was stuck. Neither one of them had oil in the dash pots. Like I said, this one had the piston stuck. This one was leaking really bad from in this area on top, and it wasn't coming from the seal or anything, it was from the top right here. I thought, well, so I replaced the tubing, had that, make sure that was tight. Still was leaking just by turning the key on and getting the electric fuel pump running. So I thought, well, crud. But I wanted to at least try and hear whether it was going to run or not. So in the second or third or fourth try, it did pop a little bit where it sounded like it was trying to light off a little bit. And the fuel is old, so I wasn't expecting a whole lot. But it did have a little sign of life, and so I thought, all right, well, maybe we'll get there. So anyway, after probably the third or fourth try, it did start to fire off a little bit. Never like sustained running yet, but after probably the 12th or 15th crank, it fired off and it was running. And yeah, now it's not perfect, but for something that was locked up 4 or 5 days ago, I'm happy. But we're gonna get everything cleaned up and do a good tune-up and move on from there. But anyway, this is the line I'm talking about right there. I need another one of those with the ferrule and fittings on both sides. I don't need the jet, just that tubing. If anybody's got one they want to sell. Also, I was wondering, my Datsun had a 68 Datsun Roadster, and kind of the same setup where you got the death trap fuel system over the hot exhaust. They had a heat shield that was put in under here, and I may try and do something like that. I am going to wrap the header eventually. I'm going to have to pull it off and clean it up, and I think it's actually cracked somewhere. I was looking the other day, unless it was a weird shadow I was seeing. But anyway, thinking about trying to fabricate some kind of heat shield for this. I don't know if anybody's ever done that or saw any benefit to doing that. Leave a comment down below if you have. Maybe you know. But I know that's how my Roadster was set up with its SU carbs, was with that heat shield. So I actually have a short video, maybe I'll splice it in here, but after I got it running, I went ahead and couldn't do a whole lot. I hadn't fixed the fuel leak yet, but wanted to at least try and put it in gear, see if it would go backward and forward. So got in, was able to put it in reverse. It did move under its own power rearward, and then put it in first and it went forward. So I was happy about that. Since then, the pedal was kind of spongy, and so since then I tried to bleed the clutch system and hydraulic system, and when I did, I think I bled off basically everything that was left over pressurized in that system. So here's what happened, was that now the pedal just goes to the floor and there's no pressure buildup at all. I found that when I took this off originally, it was dry basically. All the fluid was trapped between here and there, plus some inside the reservoir, but nothing here in this area. So I cleaned that out with some brake cleaner. Was able to blow air from here and have it shoot out, so I know it's clear. At least it was clear. Still not getting anything coming out though, and it's not building pressure, and so I'm going to rebuild both the master cylinders, probably the slave cylinder for the clutch, but the master cylinders for the brakes and the clutch will both get either rebuilt or replaced. If anybody's got those sitting handy and you want to sell, let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to look at getting a rebuild kit and go in that direction, unless I just find that the whole unit's not very expensive, and then maybe I'll just buy the whole unit and be done with it. So that's that. As you can see, somebody has added a little bit of sheet metal down in the floors. They are not horrible. I've seen worse. I've seen much worse, but they're not great either. So that will need some work. Obviously, the one up forward there will need to be probably replace the whole thing, but So there's some work to do there, but I think I can at least patch it for now until I get to that point. It's not going to be a frame off restoration or anything like that, so my idea is to get it running and driving and just start cleaning it up and having a decent daily driver out of it if I can, which I've seen other people use these as daily drivers. You know, and I'm not talking about driving to Nashville every day. I live in West Tennessee, but just the idea of being able to drive it, you know, around town on a daily basis if I want. And obviously on days that aren't the heat of summer here, because it wouldn't be that fun. But yeah, and then as far as the rest of the body, the rest isn't really too bad, at least from what I can tell. I mean, it's there, but it's not horrible. And you know, the rockers actually don't look too bad. And so I already showed the trunk. This surface rust there. I mean, the worst I've seen is this rocker here, down here. That's gonna need some work. So that's pretty much body putty, and then that's got some body putty on it. So that's probably the worst spot on the car that I found other than the floors. So I'm happy with that. So the gas tank, I believe, has either been refurbished or I think replaced at some point, because it's looks pretty fresh. So I will count that as a blessing and hopefully be able to capitalize on that. There's the mirror. But spare tires in there, jack. Oh, there's the windshield wiper. All right, I wonder if the other one's in there somewhere hidden. I did. Yeah, well, it has a lot of things that it still needs. Let's just say that. But we'll get there slowly and surely. So I found this in the floor. I only see one in there, and I thought it was supposed to go here, but I've already got a snap there. All my stainless trims in place on the hood and on the rear deck. All the catches for like the top are in. The ones on the dash are all in. I'm missing one snap, I think, on that side. But I thought this was supposed to go here. Or maybe it goes on the... No, I don't think it goes on the door. I'm gonna have to look now. Maybe somebody can tell me where that piece is supposed to go. Maybe it's not on an early car. Maybe this is just somebody thought they needed it. Let me know in the comments. Here's what's left of the tunnel. It's the original insulated one. It's seen better days. I don't know if I'll salvage that or just try and replace it. We'll see. So what's next? Here's my plan. We're gonna go through all the fluids. We're gonna obviously do oil change, differential, transmission oil, coolant. We'll get the tune-up on it, you know, new plugs, wires, cap and rotor points. Do a rebuild on the carbs, and hopefully that'll be really all I need. Maybe I'll replace the air filters also, but I'm gonna replace also some of the rubber hoses that have seen better days, like that one right there. And then, of course, as I already talked about, I got to replace or rebuild the master cylinders for the brakes and the clutch. The brakes actually do kind of work. It's a little harder than I like. Maybe that's the way the car is. I'm just not used to it, but it could be a little softer on the pedal. I mean, when I say softer, I mean it's kind of like you got to really mash on it. So I'm thinking we need to go ahead and rebuild that anyway. Probably good practice just to do it since it's been sitting anyway. We'll go through, bleed all new fresh fluid and the brake system and the clutch system, And then we'll put new fuel filters on, clean out the tank, put fresh gas in, and add a filter to the back underneath the tank where the line comes out. Seems to be a popular practice for these. Maybe it's already got one, but we'll find out and put that in. Go through the brakes and kind of inspect those. I imagine they're going to need a little bit of help, at least bleed them and see where we're at. Maybe get the rotors turned. I've got new set of shocks and springs coming. KYBs all the way around, although now I've learned that maybe I don't want the KYBs on the back because they're gas charged or gas compensated shocks. And it tends, I guess because these have a swing axle or live axle, it tends to reinforce the idea of positive camber on these, which you don't want. So may do some different things there on the rear suspension. Thinking about switching to a swing spring suspension from a later car or from the Canley group that makes a kit for it. Then also a camber compensator that Joe or Jim Curry makes and sells. Put one of those on. And then I may put a different set of shocks on the back, maybe with the Spax units. I've heard those are good. Something that's not gas compensated or charged, whatever you want to call it. Need to basically replace most of the dash because I think the gauges might work, but the switches have seen better days. I know the oil pressure gauge down there does work. I'm gonna have to find a panel to put up there for it. Front bumper is off. Does not have the overriders. I have not found those in the car. And hopefully that plus some wheels and or tires, that will get us to where we can start driving it to Cars and Coffees here locally. And of course the windshield. I do have the windshield and the seal. I just gotta save up my energy for that task. We'll clean all this up, reprime, and get that inserted. Obviously the dash has seen better days. Instruments, I know the oil pressure gauge does work. I don't know about any of the other ones. I did let it run for 5 minutes the other day after I fixed the fuel leak on the rear bowl, and the engine temp, coolant temp did not come up at all. So it was only 5 minutes. I would have thought I'd see something by that time, but maybe not. But I'm going to assume at this point that that's not working. None of the electrical works. I have no lights. My light switch doesn't even toggle at all, and it just kind of pulls back. That's it. And so I don't know what's what on that, but obviously several of my knobs on the switches are kind of seen better days there. So we need to replace those and fix what we can on that. Get that light switch fixed. Obviously lights are going to be a biggie for getting it road bound and being able to take it to Cars and Coffee. But that's kind of where I'm at, beyond doing anything weird or special to it. You know, as far as, I guess at that point then I can start thinking about trying to do something with the paint, or maybe I'll just try and buff out what's there and leave it for a while. That'd be kind of cool. I do need a rear hatch or bonnet latch. I need a tail light for this side, the lens. I'd like to get amber ones for the front because I don't know if they're just sun faded or somebody just put clear ones on at some point. But honestly, I'm not sure which one's the parking light and which one's the turn signal. So maybe somebody can tell me that in the comments below. Well, that's where we're going. Need a top, and I got the frame, but it's missing the spring pieces at the bottom. It's got the little tab, so I should be able to make something. I've already been talking to a few people online, and I think we can make what we need, unless I had another guy that reached out and said he might have a top frame for me. So we'll see where that goes. In the meantime, I'll just disassemble it Like, yeah, so, wow, those are rivets, not bolted. Oh, wait. No, I think they're rivets. Well, I may have a different plan on that now. I'm going to soak those down with PB Blaster and go from there. Also need to get an exhaust, because basically from the header back, there's really nothing there. I think there's some remnants of a tailpipe. But I haven't looked under the car. So let's look together. Doesn't look too bad, I guess. But yeah, that's what we got to work with. Trunk pan looks good. Are those ends on that cross member there supposed to be bent outward like that? Somebody let me know on that. I'll take a look at some pictures online. But yeah, that's where we're at. That's what we're starting with. This all sounds like metal back here. So I'm gonna have to replace all the rubber pieces for sure. They're all junk. So let me know the best places to get that. I think maybe Rimmers, but if anybody knows a better source, let me know. All right, that's enough for today. So if you came on here looking for Porsche or Miata content, sorry to disappoint. It's gonna be all about Triumphs now for a little while, but I'm not gonna be, I don't know. Right now my schedule is that it's gonna be a slow process, but it'll be fun, hopefully. Go ahead and leave a comment. Tell me I'm crazy, nuts, or you're encouraged by my optimism. That's where we're going. That's it. 1965 Triumph Spitfire. The journey begins.